1927. A young woman named Mercedes Gleitze has just spent 10 grueling hours swimming across the ice sea. The crowd expects her to be exhausted, and she is. But they aren't looking at her face. They are staring at her neck. Hanging there is a small, silver watch. In an era where watches were considered fragile jewelry that would die if they touched a drop of rain, this watch was bone dry and ticking perfectly. This wasn't just a lucky break. It was the birth of a legend. This is the story of how a German orphan moved to London, moved again to Switzerland, and convinced the world that a watch wasn't just for telling time. It was for conquering the planet. The story doesn't start with gold and diamonds. It starts with a tragedy. Hans Wilsdorf was orphaned at age 12. He was a man with no inheritance. But he had an obsession: precision. At the turn of the 20th century, men carried pocket watches. Wristwatches, then called wristlets, were seen as feminine and inaccurate. They were essentially bracelets that happened to have a clock on them. Wilsdorf, however, saw the future. He envisioned a world of sports, driving, and aviation where pulling a watch out of your pocket was too slow. In 1905, at just 24, he founded Wilsdorf and Davis in London. He didn't just want to make watches. He wanted to make the most accurate machines on Earth. Wilsdorf needed a name. It had to be short, easy to say in every language, and look symmetrical on a watch face. He tried hundreds of combinations. One morning, while riding on the upper deck of a horse-drawn carriage in London, he claimed a genie whispered a word in his ear: Rolex. By 1910, Rolex became the first wristwatch in history to receive the Swiss certificate of chronometric precision. In 1914, the British Q Observatory gave it a Class A rating, a distinction usually reserved for massive naval ships. Wilsdorf had achieved the impossible. He made the wristlet more accurate than the pocket watch. Accuracy was solved, but durability was the next frontier. Dust and moisture were the silent killers of watch movements. In 1926, Rolex released the Oyster. It featured a screw-down case back and a screw-down winding crown. It was the world's first truly waterproof watch. This led to the Mercedes Gleitze stunt mentioned earlier, the first influencer marketing campaign in history. But Wilsdorf didn't stop there. In 1931, he solved the winding problem. He invented a perpetual rotor, a weight that swung inside the watch as the wearer moved their arm, winding the watch automatically. The Oyster Perpetual was born. It is the DNA of almost every Rolex you see today. After World War II, Rolex changed its strategy. They stopped making watches for everyone and started making watches for heroes. 1953, the Explorer, when Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay became the first humans to stand on top of Mt. Everest. A Rolex was on the expedition. 1953, the Submariner, the first watch waterproof to 100 meters. It wasn't jewelry. It was a life-saving tool for divers. 1954, the GMT Master. Pan Am pilots needed to track 2 time zones. Rolex gave them a watch with a rotating 24-hour bezel. 1956, the Day-Date, the first watch to spell out the day of the week. It was gifted to President Eisenhower, earning it the nickname the President. Rolex became the uniform of the elite, not just the wealthy, but the achievers. In the 1970s, the Quartz Crisis hit. Cheap, battery-powered watches from Asia were killing the Swiss mechanical industry. Hundreds of brands died. Rolex made a daring choice. They refused to change. While others went cheap, Rolex went luxury. They doubled their prices and focused on craftsmanship. They turned the mechanical watch into a status symbol, a sign that you had arrived. Today, Rolex is shrouded in mystery. They are owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, a private trust. They don't have shareholders. They don't have to report profits. They operate like a secret society, focused entirely on the long-term perfection of their crown. Why is a Rolex so expensive? Why is there a 5-year waiting list for a steel Daytona? It's because when you buy a Rolex, you aren't buying a tool to tell you it's 2:30 p.m. Your phone can do that for free. You are buying a piece of history. You are wearing the legacy of the orphan who dreamed of precision, the swimmer who conquered the channel, and the explorers who stood on the roof of the world. A Rolex doesn't just tick. It tells the world who you are.